Chase Briscoe.
Everybody ready?
Yeah. Just start by saying your name and how to spell it, please.
Yep, Chase Briscoe, ChaseBriscoe.
Talk a little bit about coming down to Homestead, getting some lap time in here ahead of October's race.
Yeah, it's super important, for us still being in the playoffs. I mean, hopefully we're still in the playoffs when we come here for the round of 8. But yeah, I feel like this is a track that the more laps you can get on it, the better. It's just a really unique racetrack compared to everywhere else we go. And then with the next gen car, we don't have any notebook or any experience on it. So any laps we can get in this thing from a setup side is really important. And then just, like I said, coming down here and getting laps at this racetrack is one of the harder ones to get around. So the more experience you can get here, I feel like always is a benefit.
How do you filter through what you're going to learn here today for October and then refocus for what you got to do this weekend in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot we're going to learn this week going into Texas, but definitely can learn some stuff for when we come back here. I mean, there might be some small things we learn this weekend. This track is just there's so much tire fall off, where at Texas we really don't have any, but from a setup situation, we might find something today that definitely is better for the race car that we can maybe apply this week at Texas. And, with how our schedule is and how the practice is, we really don't get a lot of opportunities to try different setup stuff. So, coming to one of these test sessions is huge for all the teams, because we do get to try some things and have a lot more time to try them. So, yeah, we're hopefully learn something today and tomorrow that we can use at Texas this weekend. But really the main thing is just trying to build that foundation for when we come back here in a couple weeks.
What is it about this mile and a half that's so unique?
It's just an awesome racetrack. It's by far my favorite one on the schedule. It has a lot of tire fall off. We are slipping and sliding around more than really any other racetrack we go to. You can run the bottom, you can run the middle, you can run the top. It just is a really well-built racetrack. And the shape for a mile and a half is totally different than anything else we have. I think it's the perfect racetrack for a mile and a half. I feel like all the mile and a half should try to replicate this place. And yeah, it's just a fun place to come because it does change so much. And it's a lot like, for me, I grew up dirt racing, and this place reminds me a lot of dirt racing, where the track is constantly changing throughout the race. I mean, literally every single lap, you don't ever do anything the same. So you got to search around, and as a driver, this is one of those racetracks you come to where, if your car is a little bit off, as a driver, you can make up for it a little bit more than you can at other racetracks.
Tell me what it's like to be a teammate of Kevin Harvick, #1, and how much advice do you draw off of a guy that won the 2014 NASCAR Cup Championship?
Yeah, I mean, having Kevin as a teammate's a huge thing to have. I mean, that guy's done everything in the sport. Obviously, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, yeah, literally went to breakfast with him today and just picked his brain for nearly 2 hours. So, yeah, having Kevin, for a young guy like myself is huge, just because, I mean, he's literally been there and done that, whether it's on the racetrack or off the racetrack. He's just seen so many things and has obviously been successful in both. So, yeah, I'd probably wear Kevin out a little bit, but he's been nothing but gracious to me and always answered any questions I have, and has kind of taken me under his wing. I feel like he maybe sees some of himself in me, and just, how young and kind of naive I am to a lot of things. And, he's always kind of been there to kind of guide me and help me along the way.
Well, you drive under Stewart Haas. Do you ever have a chance to talk to Tony Stewart, pick his brain a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't see Tony as much as I see Kevin, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, Tony, whenever he's at the racetrack, the same way. Tony definitely, me and him have a lot of things that we relate on. He grew up 45 minutes from where I grew up. We both grew up racing sprint cars, so there's a lot of similarities there between us. And, yeah, I mean, Tony just texted me before this past weekend's race and was telling me just to think big picture and be smart. So, yeah, every time I get around Tony, I feel like he's always trying to help me as much as he can. Just, he's so busy with all the stuff he's got going on. We don't see him quite as much as we probably wish we would, but anytime he's around, he's the same way. Any question you have, anything he can do to help, he's always there for.
Yeah, one other thing I want to ask, I've seen races over at the Phoenix Speedway. I know you won your first race. What's it like to win at that track? That's a pretty interesting track out in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's definitely, a very different layout of racetracks. We don't have anything that's shaped by any means, and the restarts and everything else are pretty crazy. And yeah, it was really cool to get my first win there. Obviously now with how the playoffs are and how that comes down to our championship race, in the past I always felt good about my championship opportunities in the lower series because we finished here, and I felt like this was my best racetrack. And Phoenix was always one of my worst, so I was pretty bummed whenever they switched. And now that I feel a lot better about Phoenix. But yeah, it's a really cool racetrack, and anytime you can win at the track where the championship comes down to, it's super important. So we have a really good setup for that place, and hopefully we can get to the Final Four and try to take advantage of that.
Chase, the next gen car has been pretty interesting this year. Stewart Haas has maybe at times struggled a little bit. Could you talk to us a little bit about your journey with the car and the organization's journey with the car, and have a follow-up after that?
Yeah. Yeah, for us, I think, we started the year really, really strong with this car. We were probably a little bit ahead of the curve just with last year with how bad we struggled. We kind of put all of our eggs in the basket of going towards the next gen car and trying to figure some things out. And, felt like we really hit the ground running at the beginning of the year and over the middle part of the season. And these last couple months, we haven't really quite had the speed. And I feel like everybody else has kind of caught up and passed us. But yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. This car has brought so much parity to our sport. You see different guys winning and different teams running up front that haven't always been up front. And for us, I think with how good we started the season, it kind of got us behind for this middle part of the season. But hopefully now we can try to start catching up. And now that the playoffs are here, you're going to have to be caught up. So I feel like we're in a good spot. We need a little bit more speed still, but we've been really consistent, I feel like, and that's half the battle.
Kevin certainly suffered some car-related issues during the playoffs. Do you think we fixed the fire problem, and do you think that there needs to be continuing work on the the wheel problem?
Yeah, I think, the fire problem hopefully is fixed. Something that we definitely don't want. Fire, I think, is every driver's, scariest thing. And, we had 5 or 6 of them there and feel like now we've made it to where hopefully it's fixed. But yeah, I think you're going to continue to see problems with the car just because it's so new still. We're still working the bugs out. The old car, all the bugs were worked out because we had ran it for 10, 12 years. And this car, I think, is going to take a little while to get there. And, it's hard now that everybody has the same parts. It's hard to, make a change to where we can fix those parts without costing all the teams a lot of money. So I think that's going to be something this offseason. I think all the owners and NASCAR is probably going to sit down and evaluate and try to figure out what we can do and, what are the important items to fix. So yeah, I think it'll continue to get better. You're always going to have mechanical issues. You're going to have things like that. But, when you have a spec car in a sense, it's obviously important to figure those issues out because the whole field's going to have the issues. So yeah, I think we'll probably find some more issues throughout the year, and hopefully we can get them fixed for next year.
You talk about the fan experience at Homestead coming down for you guys as drivers and for the fans now that we're post-COVID and more fans are coming in, what that means to you?
Yeah, this place was always awesome to come to. Normally, there's a championship weekend, so everybody was fired up to be here, and, we haven't really been here, where there's been fans without the championship race. So I'm excited to see how it is. I remember during COVID, this is one of the few races that had fans in the Xfinity Series because it was right before the Cup race, and I just remember how cool it was at that point just to have even 50 people in the grandstands, right? But yeah, I feel like this part of the country has got a lot of racing, all over Florida, and everybody loves coming to Miami. They love the warm weather and going to the Keys and things like that. So I feel like it's always a good mix of people that are on vacation but also here to watch a race, and I don't, like I said, I don't think you can watch a better racetrack to put on a race. So I feel like the fans always are fired up here because the racing is so good, and they're always just passionate about this racetrack, and I think everybody wants to see it succeed.
Do you get a lot of opportunities for fan interaction?
Yeah, I think, now that we've kind of got through COVID, it's you don't realize how important that is, right? Like, that the fans are important, but you don't realize how much I think you take them for granted. And, I remember in 2020, I was able to win, I think, 9 races that year, and only one of them had fans. And you get out and, there's really no point to celebrate. Like, you're the only guy out there. So you definitely take them for granted, I think, being at the racetrack. And they had such a component of, electricity, the atmosphere, and, everywhere we went this year, we've had some awesome interactions, between, pre-race and just everything else. And having people at the racetrack, it makes it feel like an event. It makes it feel like a big deal. And yeah, it's definitely nice to have fans back, and definitely don't want to ever go back to having a race without them, for sure.
One thing I was curious about, do you think that this area would ever be able to handle 2 NASCAR races in one year?
This is the last question.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's enough races. This is one of those places where I look at it, it's, there's some parts of the country I don't think could, but I think this is one of those racetracks that could. It's kind of like a Vegas, right? Like, people want to come to Miami, people want to go to Las Vegas, and if there's a reason for them to go, that's just a bonus of the vacation, essentially, right? So yeah, I think it could support 2 races. I think it has to be in the right time of the year. I don't think we want to come here in the middle of July, obviously, but yeah, I definitely think that we could support 2 races here, whether it's, at the beginning of the year, February, March area, and then again at the end of the year. And yeah, I would love, like I said, I love this racetrack, so I would love forward to have 2 races.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys, appreciate it.
All right, guys, we have multiple